Hey everybody, this is George Morse, and
Jory Rowe from Pekin, Illinois.
so we are talking about social media and free speech. So, so there's been a lot of news lately with Elon Musk buying Twitter. Kanye West bought out Parler, and a lot, and this is turning into a hotbed of with free speech. How much free speech on social media do people actually deserve? Um, Obviously, the internet has changed its policies on as a whole uh, in the last 20, 30 years on what kinds of things you can get away with saying online. And so a lot of Facebook is really well known for clamping down and censoring people. In fact, up until a few days ago, I was blocked over something completely stupid because they use AI bots that have no context. And yeah, and so that's a problem across the board with every site. Twitter does it too, and the bright side is at least Elon Musk is willing to address that issue. But there's a lot of backlash. There's backlash from the EU. There's a lot of backlash from advertisers. There's been a lot of backlash just from the media in general over his view on free speech. So exactly what is it that how much free speech do we really need online? What do you think?
Well, excuse me, get the frog out of my throat there. But anyway, I would have to say it goes back to the beginning, the original castings and the original molds to the freedom of speech. What is written down in that Constitution is what I say goes like bread and butter all across the bread, like all across the land. But the thing of it is like the question does come up: when is free speech too much? But that's something you have to define because free speech just doesn't have a short definition for it. It has a rather lengthy one called the First Amendment, the right to free speech, and then the Second Amendment, and so on. But free speech is basically defined as free press, free enterprise, freedom of expression. You can have all this free speech all you want to think of it as, but you still don't stand up and yell fire in a crowded theater. Okay, it's just like I mean, this is steering a little bit away from the topic, but like the right to bear arms goes the same way. You know, you are allowed to own a firearm within reason, but you are not allowed to have an arsenal like an underground bunker with claymore mines and machine guns. No, you're not allowed that. But George, I have a lot to. I on my own show that I do periodically. I don't do podcasting much anymore because I'm having problems with my throat and breathing and trying to keep my throat clear while I'm talking. So just bear with me there. But free speech, like I said, goes back to the wee beginning of things when that Constitution was written. And bar none, people, that's the way I look at it anyway. I mean, you still, I mean, you got what they call cyberbullying, and that could be a big problem, but people would say, well, that's free speech, that's freedom of expression. But I would not say in the light of hurting anybody. I disagree with that. So, but like you said, it's been in the news for the last 20, 30 years. The internet has changed, and a lot of things have, come to new light in the last 30 years. Geez, it scares me. I wonder what's going to happen in the next 30 years, George. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I mean, 20, 30 years ago, if you had a problem with what somebody said online, you would just the instructions were clear. Just scroll by, block the person,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
move on with your life. But
Typical
nowadays they have
measures that Facebook uses, yes.
right, yeah. And don't get me wrong; those are still still thrown out there as what you get told to do if somebody's bothering you online. But you've got all these new measures in place where if somebody doesn't like what you say, they can turn it into Facebook, for example, and then you get gagged, you get muted because, oh, we don't like what this person had to
Well,
say.
let me tell you a perfect example of that. And this may not have been on Facebook. This covers all different broad platforms that are out there. Take TikTok, for example. I was on, my buddy was filming me on his TikTok, and I was gagging and coughing and gagging. And they were going to take him out for a few days because it was representing marijuana use. And I'm like, what the heck's wrong with coughing and gagging? That I'm having a coughing fit. What does that matter? Couldn't figure it out for the life of me anyway, George. But that's just the way some people take it. And like the free speech online, I think that is more defined on an individual basis rather than on a group wide or a majority basis.
Right, yeah, and back to, the system picking up on words. These AI bots do not understand context. I did a video a month or so ago. It was last month when I got banned, where I went in more in depth about specific examples of every single ban that I've had this year on Facebook that got me zucked, that got me muted, got me gagged. It was literally stuff that was taken out of context. That if you actually read and saw what I had posted, you would realize there was nothing, absolutely nothing wrong with what I said, but there's certain trigger words that you will get in trouble for if you just, you put them out there, things like kill, or they'll think just all sorts of words that they have a problem with. I mean, it's to the point where you can't even say
Well,
words
see,
like fat anymore.
I exactly, and people are now misspelling that word pretty bad by spelling it PHAT instead of FAT. Oh my gosh. Yeah,
Yeah.
but people's, it's all in about opinion, I think, more than less than anything, about the online shit. It's more it's more than an opinion, but it's basically an opinion in itself. People are going to say what they want, whether it hurts anybody or not. Some people are just heartless. They don't have a wanting for human life, rather than, so they just want to create havoc for others. You
Yep.
And I think that's when the freedom of speech on social media can definitely get out of hand. And let's talk a little bit about bullying, because I did strike on that subject a couple of times a few minutes back about online bullying. And what would you say is, because this could relate to our topic that we're talking about tonight, you know the types of freedom of speech that could be hurtful, and bullying could be one of
Yeah, and
them.
bullying is definitely something that I was thinking about tonight when I was picking out the topic. And the whole thing is like, again, people are overly sensitive. They have this Karen mentality that they feel that the moderators, the people who operate the websites, are like customer service representatives. And the problem is, in the beginning, with internet chat rooms and forums and stuff like that, that was never at all how that was meant to be set up. I mean, obviously there were moderators, there were people manning the chat rooms and making sure that people weren't getting out of hand and actually causing problems. But the problem is that people always wanted somebody to complain to. They wanted somebody to a tree to bark up because they just had a problem with, whatever they saw on their screen. And so, there's a difference between bullying and just simply disagreeing with whatever somebody is saying. And unfortunately that line's been blurred so much. That's why there's
It
so
really
many.
has. It really has been blurred quite a bit.
But we're going to take a quick break here. I'm going to be right back. Gotta get something to drink.
All right.
everybody. I'm back now. So you probably noticed I changed my shirt. Just a little clarification. So all my opinions are mine. There's a place I used to work. Their logo was on that shirt. I had intended to change that before we started the stream. And so as soon as I realized it, what I was wearing, I was so occupied with getting everything set up. This is the first time I've done this. I mean, literally, you won't see another video or old stream where I've done this. So yeah, I was occupied with getting everything working. But anyway, now we can move on. We were talking about cyberbullying and just how that's viewed. And so the problem is, again, people wanted that this tree to bark up. They wanted somebody to complain to because, you know, for some reason here in America, we seem to put up with more people having a problem with. You go to the store, you have a bad experience, you want to talk to the manager, right? And so there's all sorts of people who have these different grievances, and they feel the need to go talk to a manager. So online, you don't really have managers, but you do have moderators, you do have admins, and so the same mentality is there. And I think that's why a lot of these social media platforms have clamped down on free speech. So the thing about free speech is you're free to say what you want, but you're not necessarily free from the consequences.
Yes.
So, like, for example, you get what Kanye West just got in trouble for saying, where he got muted on Twitter because he said something anti Semitic. And so, obviously he's back, and that's a whole nother story in itself, and we'll get to that. But essentially, yeah, people are going to be very upset if you say certain things, and understandably so. And so, like, you can say things online on social media, but the funny thing about the social part of social media is not everybody has to like what you say. In fact, nobody has to like anything at all you say.
Absolutely not. And you're not going to get everybody out there that's going to like what you say or agree with what you agree with. And with that being said, there's a lot of the bullying probably does come from miscommunication and a lot of other things online too. With this free speech thing, it could, it could have thousands. Everything that is said can have thousands of different meanings.
It does. And so there's all these words that, as we evolve our understanding of psychology and people's trauma with things that have happened to them, we've developed this concept called trigger words. And the idea is that certain words will trigger traumatic responses in them. And um, so a lot of these trigger words are loaded into these AI bots. Like again, for example, you can't get away with calling somebody fat. So one of the bands that I had, again, taken completely out of context. So remember the old your mama jokes that have been going on for decades, right? I literally
I had something to say to you about your mama jokes.
but yeah. But literally what I had posted, so it was a meme. It was a picture of like somebody who had lost their earpods, right? Their Apple earpods. And so just like you got Find My iPhone, you've also got like Find My AirPods. And so they showed the left and the right one in completely different countries. I think one was like in Spain, the other one was all the way in Italy, something geographically like that. And I had just posted, "Your mom is so fat." Now the joke was implying that she's so big that her ears are in both countries. But because I said the word fat, that got me I'm pretty sure it was a 30-day ban. I don't get the 7-day mutes anymore. It's just where I'm at. But, and it was like, but I didn't, like that wasn't actually me going after somebody. It's because fat's a trigger word.
Yeah, it could be to some people. It's just like anymore, it's impossible to watch what you say. It's totally and almost an impossible thing because there's so many people out there that you could offend with just one 5-word sentence, or something like it's baffling.
It really is. And so, like, so how at what point is somebody just saying something you don't like, or at what point does that become cyberbullying? And so, like again, if you call somebody fat, if you're tearing into them because they're fat, you're making fun of them for it. I can see where that's definitely
That's
cyberbullying.
definitely because I had an ex girlfriend that I called a designing little hoe. And I said, "You cheat on everybody. I can't believe you date child molesters." I just didn't have a good thing to say to her at all. And she messaged me back, and everything was all in caps. And she's ripping me up one side of the road and down the other because I did that. I don't know, some people, but as far as the bullying goes, like you said, admins to websites, or even sometimes I do the police have jurisdiction over the internet? I would think it's some way they do by the area. I would say.
So the only way the police would be able to do something is if there's a standing order of protection.
Yeah.
So if so, and the other thing too is it's really funny how those are enforced because if the person goes on with like a bullcrap name, like like where it's not your actual name,
Yeah.
unless it can be proven that that fake name is like this person that you're not supposed to talk to or that's not supposed to be contacting you, it can be very difficult to get the police to do anything. Like you'll have to catch them saying something in particular about the situation or something that gives it away. Otherwise, your best recourse is going to be to block them. You can't prove it was them, but you can still block them and get them out of your life again.
Yeah.
And that's really, that's the problem that a lot of people have is they want the cops to do stuff, but the cops can't. They can only enforce the laws.
Yeah.
If you're
Yeah.
getting like for example, if you're getting harassed and if you can show the cops that you got a screen full of a bunch of attempts of calling you on Facebook, that's no different than showing them that the same person is trying to call them dozens of times on a regular phone call, and that's harassment.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
then they can take action. But if somebody just sends you a message that you don't like, you know, it's such a gray area because on one hand, if you're saying that if it's clearly a threat, yeah, the cops might be able to do something, but if they're just annoying you or they're just being a nuisance, there's not a whole lot that you can do. Your best bet's going to be to block them, and any competent law enforcement agency is going to point out and ask you, have you blocked them? If not, you should. And it's just, you know, again, we everybody wants somebody to do something about what somebody says. They just feel that language should be policed, and unfortunately, or fortunately, that's literally not how this country works. But this is how social media has begun
Exactly.
working, and that's wrong. So, so now it's going to be interesting to see what Elon Musk's idea of free speech is. There's been a few articles I've skimmed over them. I didn't take any notes, but I mean, obviously, he does believe that there should be rules, and that makes sense. You shouldn't be using these platforms to harass people. You
No.
shouldn't be putting racist content. You
And
shouldn't be
trying
using.
and the biggest one that I see is scamming people. I
Oh
see
yeah.
so many scams.
Oh yeah. Scams are a whole topic, but but the point is, there's still a certain degree of free speech that should still be permitted that currently isn't. Again, because of those bots, and the bots are trying to do a good thing, but like and now some of the stumbling blocks that we have are like, even though Twitter is based in California, if you're a company that does business with anybody in the European Union, the EU definitely has a say on how you run your show. And and it's really important to understand what that means, because if you just simply have a web forum where you're not exchanging money,
Mm-hmm.
and or they're not you're not accepting money from Union citizens, then the EU doesn't have they can't really do anything to you. Um, that all depends on how free that country really is, and if they're going to block you like the Great Firewall of China. That doesn't really happen in the EU, but that's the most that they can do. But here's the thing: companies like Twitter and Facebook and all these other, all sorts of big companies, they absolutely do business in the EU. They sell merchandise, they sell equipment, they sell advertising, especially advertising. And so, and the EU just enacted some new laws to where they can turn around and really levy fines on a company if they're not playing along. And so like when Elon Musk uh, tweeted the other day that the bird has been freed, the someone in the EU, some government official, I can't remember their name or position, but they had said yes, but the bird must fly by the EU's rule if they want to do business in the EU. So that's going to be a really important thing to keep in mind if you're a company that does any international business. And so that's so we got these other governments that have different philosophies as to free speech than we do over here in the U.S. And they've got their hand in what happens with American companies. And I don't know what I think about that. I think it's kind of bull, but at the same time, I think it makes sense. What do you think?
I would have to agree with that. You know, I mean, I totally agree with the fact that, like Elon Musk, of course, everybody says that he don't need another dime.
Nope.
I mean, just think here, just to think this over here for real quick about Elon Musk, and you could probably throw in Jeff Bezos and Richard Branson of Virgin Galactic and Virgin Voyages or whatever. You're going to stop and think that these high tension business holders, if they went on a money blowing spree, I think their money would still outlive them.
No, absolutely.
If you stop and think of that, Elon Musk is a perfect example. He's got Tesla, he's got SpaceX, he's got Starlink that I know of, and now Twitter. That's a hard thing to wrap my mind around. I mean, how could just just one person, and this could also mean too. This one person could mean new amendments to the Constitution regarding the freedom of speech, regarding the rights to bear arms. I bet you anything in our lifetime there'll be changes to that.
Yeah.
And just sit here and think that it's just a wild thing to think about because those are our rights that we were guaranteed. They shall not be changed. I guess they're not supposed to be changed. I don't
No,
know.
no. And the thing about Elon Musk is, so there's a lot of people that like Elon Musk. They think Elon Musk is awesome, and a lot of people are really like for what Elon Musk is for. And the problem is, like, so Elon Musk is rallying this whole, oh, I'm all about free speech. I'm all about this. I'm all about that, and it all sounds good, but what does it really mean? Because all of these are vague things. Like if I can tell you that I'm for free speech, but what does that actually mean? Free speech to me and what that means to me is definitely not the same thing that it means to Elon Musk. Just because we have different perspectives, we have different thought processes, and the whole thing is Elon Musk is. I think something good will come out of it, but I think there's going to be some bad things too. Like he's laid off like half the labor force there at Twitter.
Yes, he did. He did. I did hear about that.
But the important thing is like to the people that want to worship this man, is I want to point out his interest. He's out for his interest.
Oh, yes, he is.
Unless you are also Elon Musk, there is no way he's acting in your best interest. And I'm not saying he's not going to do things to improve yours lives or anybody's lives. I mean, he's got all these companies that do different things that are absolutely changing the world. But when you get into something like buying out something like Twitter, where that controls somebody's, speech, the person who controls the flow of information is the one who has the power. And that's why government is very adamant about controlling. That's why the EU is really trying to control, because they don't like they're I think the EU is for free speech. I mean, over what we call the Western world is all pretty much on the same page, but the governments are the ones that are in control, and the last thing they want is some rich guy that's got literally all the money in the world to start barking orders and controlling things. And hey, here's what free speech is to me, so if you don't like it, you can go suck an egg. And that's kind of sort of the thing that he's like. It's definitely his attitude. He's definitely got this attitude of my way or the highway. And like we go back
I
into,
imagine he'd be kind of a prick to work for, I would think.
I have absolutely heard horror stories about working for
Oh
him.
my
Like
God.
he like so considering, so this is a guy who has literally flexed about sleeping on the factory floor. He's done this apparently, and he's not an easy person to work for. Despite all these sweet nothings he whispers in the public's ear, he's no better than the next guy that runs
Well,
a
can you
multi-billion-dollar
believe?
conglomerate.
And sometimes you can see his satellites from space called Starlink satellites. I got an app in my phone called Find Starlink, and I have yet to find one, but this is internet service, wireless internet service from, well, satellite, and it's $110 a month. If I'm going to pay $110 a month, it better be because I have to, not that I can't use any other option.
Right, and here's the other problem with that. So not only is it 110 bucks a month, which depending on if you're out in the country, if you're in a rural area, that's absolutely a good deal.
Yes.
But you know, first off, you've got to have the need for it to make sense. But like the problem with Starlink is is it's there's a waiting list. You got to pay $500 down for the just for the equipment. I think that's what it was the
Yep.
last time I
Yep.
looked. So you got to have $500 up front. So either you got to have lots of cash, or I wouldn't say lots of cash, but you got to either have the cash or the credit line to be able to afford that. And then even after you pay that, you're still waiting until they're able to get service out into your area. Like it's going to take a long time before they're truly going to be able to blanket uh,
The
the
whole
world.
entire
Yeah, because
world.
that's their goal, is they're trying to blanket the world. And so, again, this is another area where Elon Musk is controlling the flow of information.
And like you
He
said, that just words, typed words, just information, that's considered speech.
exactly. So if you control what goes on the wires, so to speak, if you're the one that sits in the control room and your company is the one that everybody is using to send all their messages to their friends and family and whatever, right? That's a pretty strong position of power, because you can either use that to really make somebody's life better, like how like he had supplied and continues to supplying Ukrainians with Starlink internet, because that's the best way for them to have internet. And with the ongoing siege with the invasion from Russia. But I mean, so a lot of people were all praising Elon Musk for doing that. Which, don't get me wrong, that's awesome. Glad he did that. Glad he continues. That's great. But I think it's just a show, because he's literally the richest man in the world. And why is he giving product away? It isn't just because he's this nice guy. He's
I
not.
don't think he's what I would call generous.
I mean, I think he makes these big moves to put on a show, to show the world. Guess what? I don't like the way everybody else is doing it. Here's how I think it should be done. And don't get me wrong, this isn't inherently a bad thing.
No.
Starlink, the technology, the idea behind it, that absolutely needs to be develop, continue to mature. I think in the next 10 years that this is going to evolve into something that will change the whole world. Just the same way with what he's doing with SpaceX. Like, it's very, very important that space travel has evolved to private companies doing it
And
instead of.
5 years ago, I predicted, because I heard that the space travel in this country is going to go into the private sector, and boy, has it ever.
No, definitely, and it's really significant that we've evolved to that instead of it just being restricted to the government, because government and business have different ways of operating. Like Elon Musk is working on getting a Mars trip going, and he's actually realistically going to be able to pull that off faster than the U.S. government is. I
Yeah,
believe they're both working on ways of making it happen, but
they
they're
are.
working separately, and they're not joining forces. I mean, I think the government may have bought some equipment and technology from Musk, but I mean, I don't know that they tend to they tend to grow their own solution, so to speak. Which they do it their way. Musk does it his way. It'll be interesting to see has you know who actually gets us to Mars first. But the other thing too is they have different intentions for going to Mars. Like the U.S., like NASA wants to explore Mars. They want to learn about Mars. They want to they have the scientific perspective behind it. Musk clearly has this in a commercial mode where there's so much talk already of, we're going to set up a colony, we're going to set up business, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and it's like if Musk has his way, Mars is literally going to become colonized in its own little thing. But everybody, of course, everybody who goes, at least the first few waves, is it's going to be a one-way trip unless we find a breakthrough before we go that's going to allow us to go back and come back to Earth. And right now, I mean, that doesn't exist.
Well,
But
what they have said, I've heard them say before, like in 2 more years, we're going to be back on the moon,
mm-hmm,
bar none. We're going to be back on the moon in 2 years. But they, we had to learn from all that past technology that we had with Apollo, and with the technology that Apollo implemented. Somebody said that the plans for the original Saturn V rocket were destroyed, and none of the technology existed. That we had to learn everything over again. Well, maybe we have, but did we learn anything better this time around than I'm thinking about than you know any other time? I mean, we've, we've had several moon shots. We almost lost 3 astronauts. We did lose 3 astronauts in Apollo 1 on the ground testing, that is, and we almost lost 3 others when something aboard the spacecraft malfunctioned.
right. And of course, the big question too is why haven't we been back to the moon? Like they'll sit there and they'll say, "Oh, well, there's the Van Allen radiation belt. Oh, we don't have the technology." All sorts of excuses, but I don't think that's the actual truth because we sent people to the moon in less sophisticated craft than what is in orbit right.
Well,
That we
they
send
said,
into orbit.
get this, they said that if we hadn't went to the moon, we wouldn't have these, no smartphones. If we had not have went to the moon, we wouldn't have smartphones.
I can see that.
I
I mean, they had
definitely
to.
could see that because somebody says that the computing power of the whole space capsule is all snarled down to one, like in this
Yeah.
hand,
So I mean, and the other thing too is like, of course, they really give Star Trek credit for
They do. They
they
really
do,
do.
and it's like, let's be honest. You take a look at the old communicators from Star Trek.
Yeah.
What do you see? A Motorola StarTAC, a flip phone.
Yeah. Something we didn't have back at that time when that was on TV. But now they're talking about teleportation, and the only thing they've ever been able to teleport are protons. That's it. You know, we're just freely talking here today, and we were talking about freedom of speech on social media, and we kind of got off the topic a little bit and talked about some other subtopics we were having fun with today.
Definitely.
But I'm glad to be on your show, George. This is awesome.
Glad to have you.
You know, I am working on my show, and I can clearly see there seems to be a better way for me to do mine than what I am doing. And I was just looking at this software that you're using, and That's awesome. I jotted it down up here so I can probably look for it online or something.
Yeah, Streamlabs desktop or
But what
Streamlabs.
the biggest thing I need to learn how to do is make logos and stuff like that, so I don't have to draw them on paper and take a picture of them.
Yeah, what I do with mine is I think my logos were made in Canva,
And
and that's a free site. You go and sign up. I've been using that for years. It's a great tool. I've occasionally on and off had the paid version, but I don't need all the paid features. They keep improving the free one. The nice thing about the paid version is you end up with like more graphics that you're licensed to use. But even without that, if you find some template or you want to use a premium graphic, you can individually pay for that instead of constantly paying whatever the monthly fee is. But there's still a whole library of free ones. You can import your own. But yeah, so like with this one here, Streamlabs Desktop, it's very clearly based on OBS Studio, which is free open source software.
yeah,
I've noticed that the Streamlabs take on it does work a little better. I was playing with what was it? It was a video capture card with an HDMI port, and I had it connected to my Android TV box. I just wanted to see, what it would take if I wanted to hook up, say, like a game console.
yeah.
And so, of course, the Android box stood in for that, but the audio wasn't piping through on OBS. So the only way it worked was on Streamlabs. So I don't know what they did different. I made sure I updated to the latest version of OBS Studio at the time, so it wasn't an issue of a bug that was already fixed. But this one's a little nicer because they take an open source product and they end up having some commercial add-ons that I have only begun to start using, so I can't really comment. Like for example, I don't know what the heck I'm going to do with this green screen. I obviously need to make it bigger, and I have all sorts of green screen materials, so that's going to keep going up. But that's just where I'm at with this. So I'm just starting, and so I'm trying to figure out what is it, that I really want to do with this because I don't know yet. I like to do informational videos. I like the idea. I like this. This is fun. Actual discussions, and I mean, I don't think anybody's popped on this yet. Let's look. No. Well, the fun thing is going to be is finding out if this is gonna let me like do a playback. Because again, I've never done this before, so I have no idea.
Yeah.
Like my fear is that this is gonna go live, and then I'm not gonna be able to rewatch it. I know Facebook's gonna let me rewatch it, and there should be a way to download it. But I think YouTube's gonna let this be restreamed because I didn't see an option in the settings to let it not be restreamed or rewatched. And I follow a bunch of YouTubers that go live all the time, and you can watch that anytime.
Oh, wow.
So in theory, so this should be going live. I'm working on making this better. Um, Working with limited space, literally taking my bedroom and rearranging things. In fact, when Jory got here, I had just got done moving much larger table out of here that just wasn't working. It was just too big. Couldn't even open my door all the way. And but yeah, that's what I've been working with. This is a little better. I've got nicer cameras. I got two iPhone 13 Pro Maxes, and we're streaming this with a $30 Walmart branded webcam. And
It works.
it works. The video looks good. The audio, I'm hoping the audio works out because the next time we do this, we'll have some better thought out. I've got a wireless lavalier mic system. I thought I had that here at the house. It's actually in a storage unit right now, so I gotta find that and set that up because I got this little mixer here I've got that's set up for podcasting. Actually, will support that, so that'll be nice. Because I don't know, like this mic here, I know it looks cheap, but it's really sensitive. So hopefully it's been catching everything. I had I've got got the monitor turned on so I can kind of hear what it's picking up, and I feel like it was not catching everything. So if anybody hears any bad patches of audio, just let us know. But I think we might be wrapping this up soon.
Okay.
But
Good to me.
I mean, do we have any other thoughts on free speech? Like, so if you had a website, so I recently, like, I got so mad about being banned and muted and gagged, I ended up turning my website georgesgeekhub.com into an actual social media site. It's only me and one other person right now, but hey, you can join, and I've got my own ideas. And if you sign up, then you can click and see the community guidelines. I think that's how I called it.
Yeah.
And it's just my idea. It's not a free for all, but I'm not going to sit and babysit things. If you're a problem, you'll get banned. But, you know, but like Jory, if you had a website, if you were placed in charge of, say, Facebook right now,
But yeah.
what would you do differently in terms of content moderation?
Well, I do see a lot of senseless advertising that I would have to probably get my hands around once and for all. This I'm talking about. It's not what's being advertised. It's just stuff that you see over and over and over again.
Right, yeah.
I don't
So the
know.
way, yeah,
Other than that, that's what my theory would be.
and as annoying as some of those ads are, Facebook still handles ads way better than any other
Well,
platform
you see, the
has.
thing of it is, I found a seller of a model, a Lego kit. I was getting into building Lego kits, the Technique kind.
Uh huh.
And I bought a motorcycle, 75, $80 for the kit. I didn't get the kit. Instead, I got a small, lightweight jacket. I said, I paid $75 for this stupid little thing. So you got to really watch.
Yeah, and
You
so like,
got to watch.
yeah, and definitely like they don't regulate the advertisements like as much as you would think. Because all they care, that's their source of revenue. That's why they're able to let folks like you and I log on for free and talk with our friends, send pictures, and do videos, and why it's free to watch this stream on Facebook because of advertisers. Same way with YouTube.
Yeah.
They make their money off advertising, so naturally, they're going to have problems with anybody that runs some sort of extension or app to block the ads. But so like from the perspective of a creator like me, now I'm nowhere near able to be monetized yet, but like if you go to my YouTube channel and say I was, even the people that are heavily monetized, if you go there and watch it with an ad blocker, you're not really killing their income stream. So the logic is we know to monetize in other ways. It's not just based on the ads. So smart streamers will use services like Patreon, and will use other services that's meant for creating merchandise, which is something that I'm planning on doing as soon as I get around to doing it. That's actually a whole that's going to be an undertaking, because then I'm going to have to sit down and make graphic designs or pay somebody to, and I'm not ready for that yet.
No.
It'll be nice though. It'll be nice when it kicks on. So like the hat that I'm wearing is from one of my favorite streamer, or one of my favorite YouTubers, Scammer Payback. And so I this morning I wake up, I fire up my laptop, and I'm watching this guy destroy scammers. And I watch like I love scam baiters. I'm wanting to get into doing some scam baiting myself, but that's going to take some time. It's a skill to learn, and I'm working on it.
Yeah.
But I mean, in the meantime, like I absolutely love to support the YouTubers that I like when I can, and so you know, there's just a whole list of like if I subscribe to every YouTuber that I genuinely liked, I would be broke. I mean, there's a lot of great content put out there. I'm not rich by any means, so but I was able to buy this hat. I'm really happy. They did this thing where they were talking about their Anti-Scam Call Center, the People's Call Center, and they literally saved a lot of people from being scammed and even helped people get their money back. Like it was, it was actually kind of an emotional thing for me. I kind of sort of almost cried. So I'm like, you know what? I got to do something to support this guy. I mean, so I bought the hat. And so, yeah, but that's just how YouTubers make money, even without the advertising.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. Like advertisers have so much power over these platforms that like with Elon Musk just buying Twitter, because a lot of it's out there, and he's complaining now that advertisers are leaving in droves because they're basically like they're mad because they know that he's not going to bend over for him, and you know that's the whole thing. Like they need to like the way social media is set up right now. It still has to be evolved better. Like if you're uploading videos to YouTube, there's flat out an option to pick if it's going to be suitable for kids or not.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I, by default, I always have that set off. Like I don't think it a kid shouldn't watch my content, but because of the way I don't filter things, the what I speak, and like I do use a censor for some of the pre-recorded stuff, but I'm not, this live stream, it's a live stream. I don't have a thing to believe. I'm not in, like I may down the road, but I mean, ultimately, just to play it safe, I have that set up that way. And I think there's a lot of stuff on, social media that has to evolve. Like, who is it that's being, using it? Like, YouTube's got a leg up on this. They actually have a whole app, YouTube Kids, and so, but I think other social media sites like Facebook and Twitter should absolutely look into doing that, because kids are on social media whether
They
they like
are.
it or not.
They are.
And so like there should definitely be, some sort of separation, segregation, whatever word you want to use, between what we adults see and what the children will see. And so like if you're somebody that likes to post, controversial topics, or just something that somebody might see as insensitive, um, then you should be in a certain class of user that isn't viewed by the people that might have a problem with that, like kids. You know, for example, you shouldn't, like if you're talking about something dirty, like if you're posting a video and you're talking about the Kama Sutra and sex positions, your 9-year old probably shouldn't be watching that,
No.
okay? And but at the same time, somebody who's at least 18 should be free to watch that whenever they want, because that's just it's just how it works, right?
Yeah.
And so we don't have that separation right now. Like Facebook, to get onto Facebook, you have to be a certain age. I think 13 is the limit. But once you're on there, they don't really seem to have, unless I'm wrong. I mean, if I'm wrong, please correct me. But to the best of my knowledge, a 13-year-old sees the same Facebook that you and I see. And so that broad audience definitely creates some obstacles for content moderation, because a child isn't going to be able to handle somebody making comments about somebody being fat, or somebody being old, or having some sort of mental health or physical issue that might make them, yeah. And but yeah, so that's, and I agree with keeping children from seeing certain content that they can't handle, but but as adults, we should be allowed to express ourselves as adults, and not be burdened by the people that can't handle it. And there's different reasons why people can't handle certain things.
Yep.
There's adults with mental illnesses. You say the wrong thing, that could cause something catastrophic to happen,
Mhm.
because they're not on even footing with somebody who doesn't have those problems. And so like some people as adults have the kind of problem where they might be more like a 15-year-old that can't handle somebody being direct with them, or somebody making certain types of comments, you know Like there's people who are fat that can be handled being called fat, but then there's people who completely lose it if you make a comment about, if you go to the gym more, you might be able to start wearing some more of those clothes you miss wearing. And, and people, you can say something like that and it still gets taken wrong. But I think we've covered this pretty well. I'm going to wrap this stream up. This is George Morris from Georgia Ski Cubs signing off.